We thought we had seen it all when the Verkun attacked. They were a species that originated from a death world, and their conquest nearly destroyed the galaxy. We thought that it was just a fluke. Death worlds couldn't bear sapient life, and yet they came about. We decided that that was the end of it, and the galaxy would have its peaceful golden age soon. Then, we stumbled upon not one, not two, but 4 Death World species on the cusp of achieving superluminal flight. We decided in a narrow vote that after what happened with the Verkun, it was too risky to let the Death Worlders live and to exterminate them. Problem being, no one wanted to actually do it. Some are pacifists, others are too cowardly, and many are simply against killing entire species. The problem was argued over and over again in the council lobby by the various species, until one ambassador had an epiphany. "Let them fight!" he screamed out with a smug look, and it clicked upon all in assembly. We learned from the Verkun that Death Worlds are usually highly aggressive, territorial, and insane to begin with, and with 4 of them being quite close to each other, it could work. And so the council vacated the space up to 500 light years away from the nearest Death Worlders, and bated breath, we watched from afar as the Death Worlders take to the stars, one by one. The first were the reptilian, eyeless, Falvi, from the world with the lowest gravity. They were weaker than the rest, smaller, but still beings whom dominated their world with huge numbers, and with a knack for the sciences and mathematics. Next were the Vraslul, large insectoid monstrosities moving with ridiculous speeds and surprising coordination. They swallowed worlds, terraforming them into hive worlds of their liking. Avian-like Khazadians came next, with a militaristic warrior culture. They take to the stars in great numbers to seek a challenge or an end to their boredom, fingering the triggers of their gigantic slug throwers, while huge swords were strapped to their backs. Last but not least were humans, coming from the highest gravity world of the 4, and they struck out to be the most enduring of them all. Sooner or later, those species would come in contact with one another and start an all-out war. We hoped that with some luck, the utter destruction would be kept limited within a certain zone. We knew that though the humans had a dark past, the other 3 weren't much better at all. Then, with bated breath, we watched as the humans and Khazadians found each other through primitive radios. And didn't kill one another? "Maybe they were taking the time to plan and gather information before striking," said one scientist. But the war we thought was brewing after first contact never occurred, as though highly competitive. Both species found a love in sports, and seemed to be fond of one another, with their love of eating actual poison in their food like capsaicin. They gushed about each other's weaponry, and compared tactics and strategies. It seems as though war was not happening, but then the Favoi came, and we finally got what we wanted, when a war broke out after a disastrous first contact situation, and then promptly burnt out after less than a month, with a death toll of barely 1,000. Apparently it was caused thanks to a misunderstanding and miscommunication, and after it both sides welcomed each other and forgot about the whole thing. Without actual eyes, the Falvi came to appreciate the finer aspects of life, like sound and music, and the other Death Worlders seemed to like that, plus their resourcefulness and knack for engineering. They apparently see the other 2 races as an opportunity to learn more about the sciences of the universe, and gain new perspectives than rivals. The other 2 seem to share the same sentiment. But surely the monstrous insectoid Vraslul will be shot on sight. They somehow managed to be the most peaceful species of the 4. It also turns out that they share a lot of biological and cultural similarities with the other 3 species, and quickly wanted in on the other Death Worlders' own growing intergalactic community. "How?" we screamed out our frustrations. "How are they not killing each other?" After much further studies, we thought we figured it out. It was the humans. They had a tendency to pack bond with virtually anything and everything. They were so enamored with the possibility of making friends among the stars that they uplifted some of the animals on their own planet, dress up or even biologically engineered themselves into exotic forms. It took a lot to learn how it happened. Some of the scientists are still crying themselves to sleep after discovering the fabled 34th rule of the human's internet. Worse still, the sentiment was spreading to the other species as well, as they tried and succeeded in doing what the humans did. The Khazadians managed to bioengineer some of them to be born with wings as a fun pastime before it exploded in popularity in their worlds. The Falvi managed to uplift the domesticated pack animal they once used to great extent, and welcoming them to the fold. The Vraslul thought to bring new innovations to artificial intelligences, managing to create fully sapient AIs that didn't go genocidal as they awoke. It was madness. We didn't think the Death Riders could do things like this. We thought they would all go insane and try to kill each other at a moment's notice. So, it came to consensus that the Death Riders would probably not try to kill each other for a long time. And after another vote decided that we'll simply watch and quarantine the area, in the vain hope that they will all die out before they found us. A particular few of us even argued that, with what was observed, that they can't be trusted. However, the Verkun disagreed, preparing their ships for war, being the most adamant about exterminating the Death Riders, and saw the rest of us as spineless cowards. We could have stopped them. We should have. They weren't even the strongest of us, not by a wide margin, but on a sense, all of us were glad that someone was willing to do it, and so we just watched. They set their sights on the nearest inhabited world, a human colony. One of their admirals, growing impatient, decided to jump his fleet in system and destroy the world himself, and opposing him were only a scant few human ships in system. The humans, in their endless optimism, happily rushed out to greet them, only for their ships to burn. We watched from deployed drones on what we thought was going to be a slaughter as Verkun ships moved to the only inhabited planet. In a way, we were right. The remaining human ships in orbit, easily able to simply jump away, stood defiant as they formed a screen over the planet. Those without weapons moved to start evacuating the colony below. The human ships, comprising entirely of picket ships, armed merchant vessels, armed civilian transports, fought back, and they fought back with a fury that we didn't understand. They rammed against Verkun corvettes, overloaded the reactors to destroy frigates, and a private yacht of all things managed to slip into the hangar of a carrier, while laden with smuggled antimatter explosives. The carrier simply ceased to exist. The battle that should have lasted only minutes lasted 3 hours. It brought enough time for the budding colony to evacuate, and cost the Verkun half the fleet. Still, the Verkun pushed on. A single battle does not decide the fate of a war. In 4 weeks, more fleets and armadas jumped into human space, firing at anything and everything they could see. In all those battles, the humans fought on with more fury and courage than we ever imagined. Their entire species seemed to have united under the banner of war. Pyro vessels fought side to side with armed merchants in defense of worlds they once devastated. Private citizens got together to form convoys in order to evacuate all they can or to delay the Verkun so the navy can organize. The human actual fleets arrived in crucial moments, buying enough time for entire colonies to evacuate, as they fought a delay in action, taking 3 Verkun ships for every one of theirs. The Verkun were clearly agitated at this. They were at least 1,000 years more advanced than the humans and outnumbered them. How dare they stand defiant against their advance? And so, we watched as they plotted, some providing minor material support for their war effort. The Verkun leadership decided that they needed a decisive strike to break the humans' morale, and what better way to cripple their spirit than to destroy Earth, their cradle world. So the entire Verkun Void Navy jumped into the Sol system and found that it was a fortress of no equals. There were defensive walls over defensive walls of fortifications, made up of gigantic orbital lasers, magnetic accelerator cannons, and orbital defense platforms, all of which was supplemented with the Earth's own defense fleet, as the humans were keen to protect Earth and its sisters from harm. The ensuing battle waged on for a month, as the Verkun threw every ship they had at the system, while the humans, realizing this must be the entire Verkun armada, raised all their ships into the system in defense. It was madness incarnate, but as the dust cleared from the formerly chaotic battlefield, the human fleet stayed ragged against half of the original armada arrayed against them. It was over. We knew it. The Verkun knew it. The humans knew it. But they still grit their teeth and charged out, ready to take 5 of the enemy ships for one of theirs. The Khazarians, the Falvi, and the Raslor did not share this sentiment. Falvi's ships suddenly screamed into the system in the hundreds and then thousands, but were firing their drives and charging the Verkun lines as a mass. Most of their ships were incomplete, slapped together, or were literally floating pieces of debris, junk or asteroid with engines strapped on. They fought with a careless abandonment of their lives, and though they were destroyed in their hundreds, 1,000 more jumped in, making use of their massive numbers to bog down the Verkun. When the Falvi started to slow down, the Khazarians entered the fray. They led the charge with decommissioned warships, converted into armament ships, filled to the brim with missiles and flown only by skeleton crews, resulting in an overpowering first strike. Making use of their more efficient and faster engines, they did hit-and-run tactics, skirmishing down the numbers of the Verkun, as they knew they could not win in a direct engagement. We watched as the battle raged on for another whole month. More human ships came ready to defend their homes, as the Verkun armada slowed down considerably. Knowing it was now or never, the Verkun flew in the last of their ships, all of them. reinforcing their now ragged armada with any and all ships they have left. The Verkun fleet cheered as their reinforcements arrived just in the nick of time. Vassal hive carriers agreed with the sentiment, and their cheers were silenced as from the entire hive fleet came hundreds of thousands of parasite craft and bombers. A human fleet, originally aiming to cut off Verkun supply lines, took that chance to jump behind them as the rest of the Khazadian fleet jumped in, along with the actual Falvi navy, with tens of thousands of actual warships, the ships before being retrofitted civilian or decommissioned military craft. The Battle for Seoul will be one to remember, as it waged on for another month, as the tide turned against the Verkun. We watched as the remaining Verkun ships were massacred as they tried to run, only to find that the humans had installed an FTL interdiction field around the Seoul system, trapping them in. There was no time for the victorious side to cheer, as they, one by one, turned towards where the Verkun came from. As on the other side, we decided to... how did the humans call it? Throw the Verkun under the bus? By kicking them out of the council, cut off all connections with them, and hope that the enraged Death Riders don't decide to eat us as well. When they finally breached into Verkun space a decade later, with warships armed with new and improved technologies, they swept aside whatever defences the Verkun made and forced an unconditional surrender. We were scared as they watched, witnessing the Death Riders' skill, violence, anger, fury, kindness, benevolence, and mercy. In a twist, the new Terran Confederacy, making fun of the fact that all 4 Death Riders species named their planet after some form of dirt, earth or terror, decided to show mercy upon the Verkun. They have rules of engagement, and even though the Verkun committed atrocities in the war, they didn't. Following their own armadas were fleets of hospital ships, tenders and other vessels, following to treat the wounds, diseases, and to help out whoever they are, no matter what. In a bid to eliminate the monsters, we have become the monsters ourselves. We have been blinded by our own prejudices and struck out against not 1 but 4 species that have done nothing wrong due to our own fears, and while some said that the fault lies with the Verkun, we are also as guilty in a mission of not interfering. And in the end, the galaxy became better because of it. The Death Riders did not blame us at all, nor did they blame the Verkun as a species. Nowadays, they are a major part of the galaxy. They explore unknown spaces, fight death with a red cross on their bands, send aid to those who need them, and trade with others. The galaxy has never seen such a golden age since they entered, and this is only getting better every day. When we asked them why they didn't just kill each other, as that would have been easier, they all had the same answer. Because we wanted to be better when we reached the stars.